with Helda APIYO, and on today's episode we'll be talking on mental health with Dr. Cosmas, who's a psychiatrist at the Ramogi Odinga Referral and Teaching Hospital. Welcome to the show, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So as we begin the topic on mental health, maybe we can start with the background information, the statistics in Kenya, and it has been proven that 1 in every 4 Kenyans suffers from a mental health condition, depression, substance abuse, and anxiety disorders being in the top charts. And as we discuss more and in depth about them, maybe start us off by giving us a definition on mental health, what it is.
Thank you, Hilda.
Yes.
Basically, mental health is a state of being of the mind of an individual. Mm-hmm. This implies the mind is able to cope with the normal stresses in the environment, and the mind is healthy.
Okay.
In absence of disease.
Okay.
Yes.
And speaking of disease, what are the mental illnesses that are there?
First, let me say to our viewers that mental illness is a condition which affects the mind. It interferes in the normal functioning of the brain.
Yes.
And it brings about disruptions in the individual state of the mind. So in such a case, we term that individual to have mental illness.
Okay.
And we are part of the question about the types of mental illness. Well, there are quite a number, there are several, but I can highlight some of the few. We have depression. Depression is our most common condition of mental illness in the society. We have other mental illness, like now we have bipolar mood disorders. It affects all the age categories, especially the adults. We have also anxiety disorders. Anxiety, there are also many types of anxiety as a mental illness. We have personality disorders. We have a condition we call schizophrenia. Yes. Schizophrenia, this is a condition which is characterized by disorganized type of behaviors. The patient is not able to cope to his state of the mind and is mentally disturbed. Yes, we have another condition that we mentioned is about neurodevelopmental disorders, which affects especially children. And one of them is autism, or autistic behaviors. We have Down syndrome. Yeah, it's a condition which affects the young ones. And especially at birth, they are born with the condition. We have also attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, which affects also usual children. But again, it can be, if not well managed, can be carried to the next level. There's that young adult stage. Yes, we have conditions like substance use disorders, which is also most common in the society because people have access to this kind of substance for abuse. For example, you can mention like cannabis. This is the most abused substance. We have smoke and cigarette. We have alcohol. Yes, because it is free available. We have even heroin, which is most addictive, and it's a hard drug. Yes. Also, we have conditions related to cognitive disorders. For example, we have conditions like dementia. This sets in after the age of 60. We find out the brain starts to degenerate, so that in that process there are those disruptions, like now memory lapses, and also impaired judgment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned so many.
Yes.
We can't go in depth to know individually who they are at this particular time.
Yes.
But I'd just like to know, like, what are the causes of mental disruptions?
Okay.
Yes.
We have factors, of course, which are associated with the mental illness, and some of the factors are they are genetic. We have hereditary. There are those conditions which run in the families through the genetic formations and the mutations. Another factor could be hard substance abuse. These substances, when they are abused, they cause mental illness. For example, long use of cannabis predisposes one to forming a mental condition.
Okay.
Yes. We have also accidental injuries to the brain. This can cause mental illness in a patient who was initially well, then can also get a mental condition. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, knowing the different categories of mental illnesses, maybe there's a viewer watching at home and they have a family member or someone close to them who might be suffering from a mental illness, and they might not know, but obviously they know there's something wrong. So what are the signs they can look out for that maybe so and so is suffering from this? Or is there something common that they share, these mental illnesses? Yes.
Thank you, that's a good question. For viewers, I want to enlighten that the common conditions, symptoms which present for a patient who has developed a mental illness could be several, but I want to highlight some of them. If you see disruptive behaviors, patient says anger, violent, that patient should be assessed. Cause could be underlying cause of a mental illness. Also, we have signs like somebody talking to himself somewhere. Yeah, she's not with anybody. That will lead to mental illness. It should be evaluated. There's those also who have beliefs, strong beliefs, which can not be changed from simple reasoning.
Okay.
That now somebody believes he has is God himself. He says he's God. And you see that is a very serious. It's a problem. So they form what we call delusions. Delusions are false beliefs which cannot be simply convinced by the person that is not true. We have things like judgment. Somebody, if you give him a scenario, what can you decide in case there is, for example, an outbreak of fire? What would that person intervene? You'll get him having a very poor judgment. It's not really like somebody who's able to intervene in a positive way. We have also other symptoms. You get that their speeches, they are altered, they are disruptive. So somebody cannot give you a sentence correlating, maybe in between, can be disrupted and also say something else. There are also other conditions, signs like appetite changes. Some they sleep a lot, some they lack sleep completely. Yes. Then in the general appearance, somebody will not be hygienic, it's not well kept. Somebody used to be very smart, now you started putting on clothes which are tattered. That is a symptom that there will be something going through. Yes. Other symptoms like memory, cannot remember what happened recently. So that could be a sign of mental illness. Sometimes they are not aware of themselves. Yes, you may ask the person even his name, then he'll say he does not know. Yes, it was that extent. So there are several symptoms you should look like, and those are among them. And in case one or three in the community should be referred for evaluation. Yes.
And I do get that at times someone may be suffering from something, and them themselves are not aware that maybe I have a problem. How can the people around help this person? And in another scenario, say I've identified maybe there's a problem with me, how can I reach out for help? And also maybe inform those around me that I'm going through ABCD and I don't understand why. Yes.
Thank you. In where we come from, we stay with people. We have our family support systems. We have relatives. So we encourage, once they identify that, they will seek for medical help immediately. We have facilities, we have hospitals which are handling mental conditions. We have specialists, psychiatrists, social workers, we have psychologists, counselors. And there are those conditions which can be handled even at counseling level, psychological counseling.
Yeah.
They don't need medication, okay? There are those ones which now we need both combination, both medication and also the psychosocial therapy. So in that case, she should be referred to the hospital so that they get the support. When they stabilize, they are managed as outpatients and then going back to the community, they come for follow-up.
Okay.
Yes.
And also, like, are there treatment options for, what are the different treatment options for this? Or that's what you mentioned?
No, treatment options available.
Yes.
Yes, once the person has been referred to the facility, there will be done assessment. During the assessment, we identify what are the really issues the person is suffering from.
Okay.
Once we identify their diagnosis, now we look at the treatment modalities, and one of the treatment is the psychosocial, psychological therapy. Very important. We start with that. If this individual is not doing well in psychosocial therapy, then we introduce the medicine to treat now the symptoms he was presenting with. So in such a case, treatment can be using medication, that's drugs, and also in severe cases, we use a form of treatment we call ECT. This is done in the inpatient in the ward. ECT means electroconvulsive therapy. It is a mode of treatment whereby current is passed through the brain using the special machine called ECT machine, and it causes a seizure, that's a convulsion. And it's used in the treatment of major depressive illness. Yeah, and it has worked for quite a good number of patients.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, when you talked about that, I remember the case. Interacting with someone who, let's say, has epilepsy and they do have convulsions. And maybe to someone who does not understand convulsion, it happens, and someone who is like, they don't, they don't, they're not in touch with themselves. Maybe for after a very long time, they come back to their senses, like what happened. So you might tell me that, and I'm like, how does that help? And I've seen someone with, say, epilepsy, and when they go through that, it's not like it helps them. So maybe in the diseases, they're different in terms of treatment. You said for those who are depressed, that's what works for them.
It works best, yes. Plus medications.
Okay,
yes.
That's good information.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And mental health is not something people talk about.
Okay.
True.
Fine. People don't talk about it because we have other related issues at the community. We have needs and also beliefs from where you come from, where I come from. So what happens? The mental illness is a condition, it's a disease like any other condition. Some malaria, somebody made a diagnosis, treated and also. So when it comes to mental illness, the issue of stigma is deep rooted in the society.
It is.
People does not want to speak out and say, no, we have a mental patient in the society. So can he be treated? So what will say that stigmatization and discrimination has made mental illness to be something kept inside and secret.
And you gave that some illnesses. Sorry for cutting you short. I've seen some people do struggle in the workspace, especially if they have a mental illness. As people don't understand what it is, it's not talked about. And even some institution, the HR, they don't even know how to go about it. So you might get that someone is losing opportunity after opportunity. It's not them in particular, but it's the illness. So I guess that's why we need to talk more about it and avoid the stigma that you are saying. And also I'd want to know, like, is it treatable, like curable? Because you said it's a disease like any other, some zingine zinazaenda. So I want to know, like, is it something that can go away or some are there to stay?
Thank you. Mental illness, as I mentioned, is a condition like any other. The only difference is their duration of treatment is quite long. It's not a one-stop medication for 3 days, 1 week, then you are discharged. They are put on medication for a long duration, and during this time, they are followed up. They are being done periodic mental assessment to establish the mental statement which was done initially. How is it correlating with the subsequent? Is there kind of improvement? Yes, that's how we do a follow-up. The challenge is they talk long, and some of them, if they are in chronic, they have to be medication for quite over the duration of time of when they are alive, because the medication keeps them at the maintenance level. They're able to cope, they're able to work while on medication. If they are removed sometimes, there are those who relapse again, go back to a worse situation as they were before. So that's why we say, yes, it's treatable, but the duration is quite long. Some are on medication for quite the rest of their life. Yes, in some conditions. Yes. I want to mention something you mentioned about epilepsy.
Yes.
Not all epilepsy cases are mental, they have mental illness, unless they present with psychotic features. Psychotic is that after the seizure of epilepsy, then this person might present with some confusion, some mental signs of mental illness. Then you classify that one to be epilepsy plus some psychotic features. But there are those who have only generalized epilepsy, and they're maintained under medical clinics, and they continue with their medications. So not all cases of epilepsy are labeled psychiatric illness.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
And also there's something I'd want to know. Maybe you give our viewers more clarification. I know later on in the episode we'll go in depth about mental health. Maybe there's someone who want to know, like, you said it's generative or
in genetics.
In the genetics of the family. And then someone is just born with a disorder, like autism and the rest, and can they improve over time? And also I've realized there's some that you pick up later on, maybe say substance abuse, or you get into depression. So maybe to know, are there some that I'm just born with? And so when I help myself.
Thank you. Mentioned about one of the cause of the factors is heredity.
Yes.
So we have conditions, for example, schizophrenia. We have studies which were done showing that if a child is born from a family, parents who are schizophrenic, there are high chances of this one carrying the gene for schizophrenia. So at one point, one of the family members can carry the schizophrenia to the next generation. So that's why we are saying it is hereditary, it's carrying the genes in the family. Also, conditions like epileptic seizures, they are also carried in the families. Yes, and also we have a kind of chronic illness which can be transmitted from the other family levels. For example, even diabetic. Yes.
That's why it's good to know, because if we look at other diseases, maybe diabetes, it's in the lineage. And you get that you don't talk about it. Maybe you don't even ask your parents or those who came before you, like, how are things back at home? What should I look for? So that if I'm here and say my parents are suffering from schizophrenia, I can be on the lookout and say, okay, mom has this, dad has this. How can I prevent it? Or if I can't prevent it, how can I be on the lookout? So I guess it's something that needs to be talked about in most homes, so that people should know. Yes. And as we speak about it, maybe if there are preventative measures for some mental illnesses.
Sure. What you are talking about, preventative measures we can do, we start at the community level. Because what's happening, you cannot prevent a condition while in the hospital. You have to prevent at the society where people stay. First of all, we must take care of the environment. The environment you are staying in should be free to factors which predispose us to mental illness. For example, minimize availability of hard substances in the society, even alcohol. Yeah, so should be at watch. So it's advocacy at the community level through all the partners. Let us speak about alcohol and its effects after use. So through that we'll be preventing a certain population who could have found themselves already abusing these hard substances. We can talk of stressors in the society. You see, in your introductory statement, you mentioned about the ratio of 1 to 4 currently.
Yes.
It has come down from 1 to 10.
From
Reasons could
25.
be COVID in the society, and the COVID has predisposed some of us to a lot of mental disorders.
Yes.
The challenges COVID came with could be the reason why those statistics have come very high that way. So in preventing also, we also teach our people at the society, if they see these symptoms, they could refer early for intervention before it goes to chronic. It can be prevented at psychosocial level through talking and counseling. That one can be handled. So such information should reach the community, and at the community we have resource people. We have community health volunteers, we have the administrators, we have the area chiefs, we have the church, very important. It plays a role in also making advocacy messages.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know. Yeah. And recently, people have been more open to therapy as compared to the past. And maybe I might be saying, me as a person, as Helda, maybe I don't have a problem. But you get that maybe growing up, I did go through some trauma, childhood trauma that maybe can prevent itself later on. So we talked about those as a form of, it's a condition trauma, maybe a head injury. Are there some that are psychological, maybe how I grew up, I was treated, maybe that's how it makes me who I am, or someone who was undergone extreme conditions. I give an example. You were telling me the other day of our police officers who are, their work, it is a bit stressful, and maybe they have trauma working and everything. So in terms of therapy, can they be assisted? Okay. Yes.
Thank you for that.
And for everyone.
Thank you. When it comes to trauma, it can be both physical trauma or psychological. But for mental health, psychological trauma is more worse than the physical one.
Okay.
Because the one who is affected psychologically must be going through a lot. And during this time, the person, if no intervention done, might do something which is worse. So for cases which can lead to psychological trauma, if for example, somebody went through a very bad experience while at childhood stage. For example, the worst experience you can say maybe was abused sexually, or underwent what we call maternal deprivation. The child was brought up without parents. Okay, so if this person was not handled well in those early stages, later on he'll come to present them early adulthood, and that time now you get that he has already developmental problem, because at that age, for example, in sexual abuse, if it was not well managed, psychotherapy was not done properly, then later on will suffer a depressive illness, because that thing now is haunting. They do not have opportunity to share with somebody. So in that case, we say that those things must be handled, and later on they form what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, which now later on the person can have time now being treated for it. Yes, it's as a result of the experience which was bad, the past experience.
Okay. Well, that's a lot that we've learned today, and I know.
But before you conclude, there's something I wanted to mention. You mentioned about mental health and the HR issues, human resource issues. You get somebody given some being discriminated at work or what? I want to inform the viewers that the mental patients are protected by the Constitution. They are being recognized by the Constitution, by the way, because they are allowed to seek medical approach, and also at work. They should not be discriminated because of their mental state. They are allowed by the Constitution to seek treatment, and they can continue with their work when they are stable.
Okay.
So somebody should not use that one to describe someone. That's against the law.
It's against the law.
Yes.
So this is so good to know, because you might get that people don't know. I personally do not know.
Yeah.
I witnessed a situation where someone was fired because they had a mental condition. Yeah. And it later on affected this person because it's beyond the person. So if you find yourself in a position like that, you contact the people in charge, or how do you go about it? Because you say that they are defended by the Constitution of the government.
Yeah.
Yes. So the immediate course of action is reporting it.
Yeah, you see, the patients, they are on treatment.
Yeah.
The employer must be aware these patients are on treatment and they are being followed up. So regular reports are given to the employer to advise them on the state of this person who is working is also a mental patient. And if there is a need from the employer, maybe to retire the person on medical grounds, there is a due process to be followed. So there is a board which sits and discuss, medical board, and give their recommendation to the employer. They don't do that. They don't terminate the contract before a recognized board sits and writes a report.
Okay. Yeah.
So on the treatment modalities, we left out rehabilitation is very important.
Yeah.
It's very important because once these patients recover and they have their specific skills, they're supposed to be reintegrated back at the community so that they continue income generating activities to support themselves. Because that is also a role of treatment. We have to rehabilitate patients.
You know, when you say rehabilitation, most of us think of only those with substance abuse. Maybe someone addicted to maybe alcohol on the hard drugs. Can someone with other form of mental illness be rehabilitated?
Sure.
Okay.
So in rehabilitation, we are not selecting to substance only. It's all conditions. It's all conditions which are now rehabilitated according to what is a specific need.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. If the patient was an artisan, can continue to do his artisan at home. He was a carpenter, continue. If he was a musician, should be rehabilitated by music therapy and goes back to sing and continue singing.
Music therapy?
Yes, a form of treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for coming, Daktari.
Yes.
Is there more you can add concerning the topic as per now? Since this is just an introduction on mental
No, my
health.
point in short, let us educate our society and empower them to identify these cases and stop stigma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you be, maybe there's someone watching and they've had something that interests them. Maybe you can give out your contact information and social media handles to our viewers.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you have any question, you can find me at my contacts are 0722 246 797. My name is Cosmas. I work at the Psychiatric and Mental Health Department, Jaramogi Teaching and Referral Hospital. You are free to make your consultations.
Okay, and to our viewers who have been watching, thank you for staying with us. That has been a very informative episode. And I'd like you to leave your comments and questions on the contact information in your screen. As we'll be having more episodes of mental health, you can always leave your questions regarding whatever you've had. And I've been your host, Helda Show. Thank you and goodbye.